Hi, I'm Cynthia Schiller. Please like and subscribe. We're going to talk about stonewalling, gray rocking, why people use these different coping techniques within these narcissistic relationships. The difference between gray rocking and stonewalling is what the narcissist will use against us, and gray rocking is our response to it. So what exactly is stonewalling? That's just when they refuse to communicate with us. They intentionally shut down an argument, also known as a silent treatment. Now, this type of treatment can be extremely frustrating, definitely hurtful, and it's always harmful to the relationship. And these behaviors can be seen in where the narcissist becomes uncomfortable about discussing feelings. They shut down, they dismiss, or minimize what our concerns are. And they'll often refuse to respond to the questions that we have, or they'll use word salad so we don't get a succinct answer. They often won't make eye contact. They'll offer nonverbal communication cues, such as rolling their eyes, kind of being very dismissive. And they even walk away from discussions that will cause them to feel a little bit of stress. It's not an effective technique, and it can often become a habit. And this over time reduces their ability to interact on an intimate level. They don't resolve conflicts. And when you have certain signs that are like red flags, if they're stonewalling us, sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes it can be subtle. And these are the red flags that we have to look out for, because a lot of us feel blindsided, like, what just happened? Now we're not together, or our whole family or our life just fell apart. So some of the signs are when they ignore what we're saying. They just don't take the time to focus on what we have to say. They'll often change the subject. They don't want to deal with an uncomfortable topic. They'll storm off, kind of like a child would, and they don't even say anything. They just want to get away from the situation. So they'll come up with different reasons why they can't talk. They got to do this, or they're busy. But it's the main thing is they just refuse to answer questions, and they just kind of shut down. They'll sometimes make accusatory statements, kind of putting it back on us rather than talking about the current problem. They can even like close their eyes like they're just sick of us, or they roll their eyes like they don't want to hear what we have to say. And they can even have passive aggressive behaviors. They'll kind of procrastinate to avoid talking about the problem. They'll keep putting it off, and they don't want to like acknowledge that they're doing the stonewalling. So if we bring it up to them, can you just talk to me? They'll still give us a silent treatment. They still won't break out of it. And it's not always easy to recognize, but it's just the refusing to talk, not dealing with conversations, a lot of ignoring, and that silent treatment is terrible. The causes of these, they're emotionally passive. They like to have avoidance when it comes to conflicts, and they just want to reduce the tension. So they kind of remove themselves. Inside them, they don't believe they can handle a certain topic. That's why a lot of these breakups, they just ghost us and leaves us in such an unsettled state. That's where the lack of empathy comes in, that they don't care what they caused in us when we were just trying to talk to them or get clarification. They're just wrapped up in their inability to want to communicate properly. And so they're not often sure on the outcome of the conversation. So they get scared and they just don't deal with it. So they feel in that way that they're avoiding a negative outcome, but they cause more damage by stonewalling. So inside them, they have this underlying hopelessness that there is some resolution. So they just shut it down. They just don't deal with it. And they kind of want to be neutral. They'll often say that we're oversensitive or being unreasonable or too emotional. And it's just so they can manipulate a certain situation. They want to get their way. They don't want to have to change anything. They don't want to have to accommodate us. And so they sometimes bring in grievances into the conflict, or they might say that they want to end it altogether. A lot of times they'll push us away. It's just coping techniques that they have, but those coping techniques are really damaging to us. So that's what gray rocking is. It's how we respond to them. But stonewalling from the narcissist is often something that they learned during childhood. It might have been a behavior that their parents used to use to kind of gain dominance or to keep the peace. And they just saw it as an effective means of communication, which no communication is not effective communication. So even if it's aggressive or intentional, it's often used by people, and this is kind of interesting, who feel powerless, or people have low self-worth. So if they felt strong about themselves or the decisions or the words that they would use, they wouldn't shut down like this. So that's why sometimes when we're dealing with a narcissist, we see them as these like great people sometimes, that they're strong and confident, but it's the subtle signs, the red flags, the cues that show us they really do have low self-worth. They can't even talk. They can't even process their feelings, or you know, deal with a fear that they're going to be abandoned, and they will rather take themselves out of the relationship out of a fear of losing the relationship. And all narcissists are different. Out of the 5 that they need out of 9, they could have all 9. They could have 7 of the traits that is necessary to get the diagnosis, but they also have their life experiences. You got your vulnerable versus your grandiose, but it's just a defense mechanism. So research has shown that men are more likely to stonewall. Part of that is due to societal roles where women are often more communicative, and men are seen, you know, it's kind of changing and evolving now, but you know, men are to be strong and silent. We don't want them crying. We don't want them emotional, based on traditional relationships in the past. It's starting to change a little bit, and I want to do a little more research on how it's evolving over the years. But women also use a lot more words when we communicate. Even just to tell the same story, women will say a lot more. So there are some different types of stonewalling. You got your unintentional, and that's just a learned response. They use that to cope with difficult or emotional situations. And they do this to avoid escalating the problem, or to avoid discussing something that they're uncomfortable with. A lot of times it's just because they're afraid of their partner's reaction. So this one, I feel I went through when, you know, I was promised like a future, hang in there, hang in there, hang in there, for literally 2 years more than I could take. And then he didn't want to come clean that, you know, we're not moving forward. So for months, they just don't say anything. Intentional stonewalling, that's to maintain the control within the relationship. It's manipulative, and it inflicts a punishment sometimes. So if they don't like what you did, they just don't talk to you. So if you think that who you are with is verbally abusing you, sometimes it is important to speak with a counselor, or keep watching YouTube videos, talk to therapists for advice. And now this is something to take into account. There's also healthy behaviors that can be mistaken for stonewalling, and it's important to take this to heart. It's not the same thing as asking for space. It's not the same thing for setting boundaries. So it is okay to tell somebody, I need some time to process this. I'll talk to you in a little while. But it's the politeness in it. It's the communication in it. But narcissists don't do that. They'll use it hoping that we forget about things. They use it to avoid it. So when asking for time or space, it has to end in the communication. But narcissists don't like to uphold their promises. So if your partner asks to discuss something later, with the full intention of coming back to this conversation, that's not what stonewalling is. Stonewalling is used to control or be disrespectful or demean a person. And that is actually emotional abuse. So sometimes it does help seeking a therapist to kind of help deal with it. A lot of them will tell you to go gray rock. There's also something called yellow rocking, but gray rocking is a way to deal with narcissists, to kind of minimize their manipulation. Sometimes we have to stay in communication with them if we have children, or maybe narcissistic siblings and you're trying to care for your parents. So everybody's situation in life is different. But gray rocking, a lot of times just avoiding eye contact, not opening yourself up for communication, maintaining a flat tone. Don't get all excited or upset, just kind of monotone, even keel with a yes, or in the negative, just say no, or really. Not sarcastic, but just very flat. And you know, there's times that you just have to deal with it, but you don't want to give them any fuel. They feed off of negative or positive energy. So if you give them the least amount of energy, it kind of stifles them. So a lot of people say just kind of visualize yourself as this gray rock. And if you're impenetrable, immovable, you know, they'll see that they're disinterested. You are disinterested in them. And that's just what the gray rock method is. So instead of yelling or defending yourself, just be very nonchalant in all of everything. You don't want to provoke the narcissist to react with their damaging behavior, and any kind of attention, like I said, good or bad. So to minimize it, you know, hopefully that the narcissist will just lose interest or get bored. They'll stop manipulating you. And it can be really difficult when you co-parent or have to communicate with somebody who is narcissistic. But sometimes it's helpful to enlist a third party, or just do it by text. Don't get sucked into their games. Watch out for the red flags, the way they talk, the poor pity me. Just don't let it go, or don't let it bring you in. Hold your boundaries, and just, you can tell them, you know, you don't want to discuss it this way, just yes or no. What's the answer? Just be very flat with them. Don't, you know, continue the abuse. So yellow rocking, what exactly is that? Now, this is a little bit more emotion into the communication. It's just not that complete flatness. Sometimes you want to do that so you don't damage your children. You don't want them seeing you as being extremely cold or not communicating with the ex-spouse or parent. So sometimes instead of just the flat yes, no, you can say, oh my, you know, I didn't realize that, thanks. And just a few extra little words, just kind of giving a little bit more acknowledgement. So, you know, the cost of the silent treatment is harsh, and we react to it. So we got to be careful too, though. You know, some experts say that gray rocking is effective, but it might do more harm than good. So not everyone can take it. Some narcissists can. This is something you really should take to heart. I did not really do the gray rock or the yellow rock. Well, maybe it was a little yellow rock. It was maybe, I just felt it was more important to communicate, but I didn't try to over communicate like when I was trying to get back together with them. But I felt an open door policy was what I was hoping for. I thought that was the healthiest. You know, he shot me down on a lot of things. Narcissists are really odd. He told me that you know, how concerned he was about our daughter. So There was one time I reached out and he said, have the doctor tell the nurse to call him. And I'm like, I can't even tell you, like, it was ridiculous. Because I was never violent. And it's like, I was just going to send you an update. And I'm like, you want me to go through all these steps to tell you how our daughter is when she's in the hospital? It can be kind of mind blowing, but, you know, just be aware of what your narcissist triggers are. It might enrage them. So know who your person is. But those are just some things. I didn't really do the gray rocking because it was kind of over at that time. There was so much silent treatment, so much stonewalling that it was just not effective. It was just kind of exhausting. And when they are that stonewalled against you, to where I'm trying to hand a soccer ball to him, that's our daughters, and you know, you can't even take a soccer ball out of my hand. It was just very hurtful. It makes you feel like you're, you know, in a different world, like you're nothing, like you're not a person. He would have taken the soccer ball from anybody else in this world, complete stranger. And narcissists don't realize how much damage they do to people, how much damage they do, you know, for the children watching that. So if you choose to go gray rock, I would prefer to do a third party instead of just the complete gray or yellow rock. I don't know. I personally think that we are hurting because of lack of validation. And, you know, we don't have to be overly polite or overly empathetic for somebody who created such a terrible situation. We added into it because of reactive abuse. But I would prefer, if it was me in that situation, to just say, I just need to know the answer to this question. They try to go off on a tangent, just keep it, which is kind of gray rock. Sometimes you can go completely no contact. And I personally think you should just acknowledge, you know, basically it's just over. I wish you well. As opposed to leaving them wondering, because that's what they often do to us. That's the type that I experienced. My first one did acknowledge, wanted to postpone the wedding. I took it as he wanted to cancel it. But I give him so much credit for doing that. That was really hard. And then the second one was just so cold. And I got more damage out of the one that didn't at least acknowledge what the issue was, or what was happening. So I just thought it was some things to talk about. This was a topic request from a viewer. If you guys have anything that you would like to discuss, definitely let me know. I do take topic requests. I'll make a video for you. And like and subscribe. One-on-ones are available. And big hugs to you. I'll see you in the next video.